And we're rolling. What's up, everybody? My name is Ahmed and welcome to Who Is We? This is the arts and media's intersections through conversation, observation, and participation. We are here in the beautiful new Dia Hurston New Village Arts Center. We are in the White Family Next Stage area. And right now, I am going to introduce to you, I am talking to Amanda Doherty, who is here with us for this production of the Ferryman. And on February 4th, it's running through March 5th here at New Village Arts. But we are going to talk to Amanda. We're going to find out why she's here, where she came from, what she's doing here. Amanda, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to talk. You know, this is a brand new podcast.
I didn't know.
It's strictly about theater and the arts.
I love
and
it.
You are my first guest.
Success. Yeah, I'm delighted. Great. No problem. That's fun. I will keep the bar nice and low for future guests.
No. I really thank you for doing this and taking the time. I'm not around here doing anything, but thank you for taking the time to talk to me and talk about what you're doing here in the beautiful San Diego area. Let's start with that. Let's talk about to everybody a little bit about where you are from and how you ended up here in San Diego at this date and time.
It's a good story.
Let's hear it.
I am originally from Derry City in Northern Ireland, and I am an actor and I'm a theatre maker and I am an artist, and I love making work. I think it's extremely important for actors to lean into their agency and think about who they want to be and what stories they want to tell. And so in addition to my work as a mainstream actor, then I also make things. And I made a solo show along with a team of collaborators that went to Reykjavik last year. And then I was staying with my friend Hugh, and I was getting a bus into town one day in Reykjavik, and I met a lovely lady at a bus stop. And I thought she was Icelandic, so I wasn't going to say a word. They're naturally quiet people.
Right.
Leave these people alone. But I was dying to say hello. And then this lovely woman noticed I had a camera, and she knew from my camera that I must be a tourist. And she said hello, and it was the wonderful Sam from New Village Arts. And Sam came. And we just got chatting, and she asked what was I doing there, and I said I work in theatre. And she's like, what? I work in theatre! And we were yap. And we got a bus into town, and it just so happened that this was the morning that I was free. I was free for 3 or 4 hours, and I knew Reykjavik quite well. It's pretty small.
Right.
So I was like, where do you want to go? I am your tour guide. We're going to see everything. We're going to do all your photos and all the tourist spots. And we went for lunch, and we were chatting. And Sam told me then that you were doing the Ferryman. And we had a conversation about it because some of the show is set in Derry. Some of the characters are from Derry. That's my hometown. I know it so well. And we were chatting about that from a theatrical perspective. And so when Sam went home, she told Christiane Kerner, the director of the Ferryman, that she had met me. And when Christiane was touring Ireland, she came to Belfast, and we just again happened to be free at the one time. And we really hit it off. And I'm so grateful. Yeah, the Arts Council of Northern Ireland provided a grant for me to be here. So I'm serving as a cultural consultant and giving people a bit more, I guess, context on some of the things that it's unreasonable to expect a non-native to know.
Right.
Kind of placing these things and making a bit more sense of things. And also just having a really good time. I'm just enjoying myself.
Hitting the beach, right? It's only a block away.
Beach every day.
Now, do you get a lot of beach action at home? Do you get a lot of time to go to the beach?
No.
Is there a beach? I mean, I'm showing my ignorance here of the exact area of what's going on, so I don't know.
No. I grew up in Derry, and so like a lot of Derry people, I would go to Donegal a lot growing up. So, we would have had a lot of access to the beaches, but it is the Atlantic Ocean. It is freezing cold. If you really like an ice cold bath.
Yeah.
So is there anyone listening who's a fan of Wim Hof? like, you better go to Northern Ireland. The ice bath is right there.
It's pretty cold,
It's
right?
so cold.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it's refreshing, you know. But yeah, where I live right now is North Belfast, so that is not near a beach. It's not near the ocean. And it's near mountains. So my kind of escape and connection with nature at the moment would be climbing up a mountain called Cave Hill.
Okay.
And I find it really important to me. It's really part of me connecting with myself and connecting with an internal grounding and peace and stepping away from what feels like constantly spinning plates to just go somewhere that is pure nature and stillness and invites a sense of quietness. So yeah, I'll joke saying, oh, I love the beach, but actually what I really love being here is the water. I love listening to the waves. I love people are there relaxing and they're just listening to their breathing. And that's what it is. That's what I really love. So yeah, at home at the moment, it's a mountain.
Right.
Yes.
Well, tell me a little bit about, for people that do not know, the Ferryman is here on stage at New Village Arts through March 5th, based on true to life events of the Troubles in Ireland in 19. Particularly, this is set in 81, right? 1981.
Yes, and 1981 is a massive year.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about tell me a little bit about that time and that year and what this play is trying, what Jez Butterworth and this play is trying to get across to us.
Yes, certainly. Well, one thing that I would point out to people who, again, would have no reason to know these things. This play covers something which is all too commonplace where I'm from, and looks at the story of someone who would be described as one of the disappeared. The disappeared are people who were removed from society. They were taken away and their families never given any notice or any knowledge of where they would have been, but it was all related to the Troubles, and it was never ever something that could be justified. So you have families who just suddenly have someone missing, and nothing happened to them accidental. It was all very intentional that these people were taken, and their lives were taken, and their families were completely and utterly disrupted. And they were never given any sense of closure, because it is absolutely bad enough to lose someone and to lose them through violence, but for that to happen without any sense of closure, the constant semblance of hope that actually the door's still left open. They could come back. Maybe they were taken away and told to build a new life somewhere else. And it's that constant unknowing and the impact that that has. That is what's being explored through this narrative. And it is specifically set in 1981 because that was the year that we lost the hunger strikers. And it was incredibly intense and a very turbulent time. And this would have been under the rule of Thatcher, who had absolutely no time for us.
Right.
And so you can see that at this point also, it's very different to how things would be received and understood now. I think that we're at a different place in 2023 where people can look at these events from a different perspective. Sometimes people meet them with more understanding of the viewpoint that went into these actions, and it's really important to just also emphasize there is nuance. And just because you can see someone's viewpoint, it doesn't say, oh, I think this is justified, or I condone any violence or anything like that. It's just simply saying I see their viewpoint. But at this point in time when the play is set, there would have been a very heavy-handed perpetuation of the narrative that this is just the act of violent thugs, these are just terrorists, and there is nothing legitimate about this. And there's no room for that conversation to have any light or dark or shades or anywhere in the middle. So it's all very really intense and loaded and tense time in society for these characters. Even the main characters, who are the Carney family, they are removed from the urban area. They are living out in the sticks. They're living on a farm, and they've intentionally the head of the family, they've made this choice to want to live here in a pursuit of peace, but it lives inside you. So it's still living inside of them,
Right.
you know, so there's never any sense of escape. And I think that's also something that is explored through this show, that when you're faced with this constant, intense trauma, that even when you make your best efforts to find a sense of peace or to cultivate a semblance of serenity for the next generation, it will still come and find you.
Yeah.
In some cultures, in some societies, you don't have to go looking for trouble, it's actively looking for you.
Yeah. I know we talked about this a little bit the other day about how this struggle has been somewhat removed from the zeitgeist, somewhat like many people today don't have the knowledge of it. Like I remember in the 80s, like I remember this, like this was front and center, like here in the States, this was front and center, national news, like nightly. Like it was something that most of America were aware of what was happening. And I don't know, maybe if it was the dominantly taking over all the headlines from like the late 90s, late 80s until now, that maybe that's where the focus has been, but a lot of people do not, it's not something that's really prominent in their mind. Can you give me, just like as briefly as possible, or however you want, like a little bit of what was the political, like, what was the political foundation of these troubles and these structures? Like what exactly was, I guess, what was the struggle at hand?
Oh my God.
I know that's a lot, but
In 5
just
words,
to kind of,
just sum it up.
just to give us a little bit of context, because a lot of people, again, this is something that maybe a lot of younger people don't even, it's not even on their radar. They don't even know that this was going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and I'm so happy to explore that. I'm just also really aware there is no way to answer that will not completely anger some people.
That's
That's
okay.
it.
You have
That's
to anger
it.
people to tell the truth
And
sometimes.
that's it. But it's such a loaded question. From my perspective,
Yes.
one thing that's really important for me to remind people is that in situations of oppression, there actually are not two sides. There's not two equal sides. There are the oppressed and the oppressor. And it is that simple, whether you want to relate that to Northern Ireland or any other area of the world. Yeah, it's that simple.
There are those who have the power and there are those who don't.
Right. And you can't say, oh, they just don't like each other, or it's just, do you know what, I don't understand, it's just Catholics and Protestants. If you simplify it that much and you make it something which is that vague, then it seems impossible to demystify, in which case then it seems impossible to solve or actually find any path or route out of. And so that's why it's extremely important, whether it is this situation or any other in the world, to look at things straight on and resist the urge to be vague and make things just so incredibly incomprehensible, because there has to be a route somewhere. And for me, and for a lot of other people, the route is colonialism. That's it. Our country was colonized in a particularly brutal way, like many others. And it is imperialism which allows this myth to continue today, that it is just equal and it is just two sides, and it's absolutely not. And that is the root. The root of a lot of this would be rooted in civil rights, actually. And that is something that was really important for me to press home with the company here. When I got here, I just said, again, there is no judgment on anyone for not knowing things. There's absolutely not.
Right.
But I would have a judgment on myself if I didn't expand the conversation.
Right.
But for me, and again for more than just me, the civil rights movement in Northern Ireland exists because of the civil rights movement in America. They go hand in hand, and that is it. You cannot separate these. And it's also, it's a thing that is known where I'm from. This is something I was always brought up to know. So in my hometown, we have a really iconic, I guess it's kind of like a piece of art now, but it was the gable on the side of a house called Free Derry Corner. It says on the side of it, "You are now entering Free Derry." And this was something that was used to mark the area, to say to British forces, don't come in here, you're absolutely not welcome. And if they did come to approach, people had the metal bin lids and they would bang on the ground and say, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming. And that's where things would start. The idea to paint that came from an activist called Ahmed and Amanda, who was inspired by "You're now entering Free Berkeley." And it wasn't an accident, and it was never, and it's really important to push that home, because if you don't know the context and you don't know the root of these things, then you don't understand. This is hand-in-hand partnership, and this was a knowing relationship, and it's actually then you're dealing into appropriation as opposed to appreciation.
Right.
Or even a lot of people on marches, they would sing "We Shall Overcome." We know where that's from.
Yeah.
We know the root of that, and we know it's not ours. But we also know that these have been and continue to be very live conversations. And this also would be why one of our well-known activists and politicians at the time would have been Bernadette Devlin. Bernadette Devlin represented Tyrone. She was elected at that time the youngest ever MP, and she was awarded the key to the city of New York, and she accepted it and said thanks so much, and it's very well known. She gave it straight to the Black Panthers, and she said, "This is actually yours. This is yours. We have nothing without you." And also it's an acknowledgement to say how you are treated in this society, that we feel it. That is where we have a mirror image in our heart. That's how we're being treated in ours. And there's nuance in that, and you need to also hold space and say, listen, there might be a mirrored feeling, but Ireland is still a predominantly white country in Western Europe, and I'm still a white person, and you have to say that it's absolutely not the same, and it never will be.
Right.
But there is a sense of solidarity there. And that's where it would have come from. And so even Bloody Sunday, which was one of the most defining moments in my country's history, certainly my city's, that was a civil rights march. And that march was happening to get greater access to voting. Sometimes you'll see paintings or photographs and people holding placards on that day. One man, one vote. And so there was a lot of voter suppression. And that's what it was about. It was about saying it is so easy for those in power and in control to manipulate and create the circumstances where we will never have a chance. So we're protesting in a civil way about that. And it was during that march that there was open fire against unarmed civilians. And if you're just walking down the street holding a placard and you'll still be killed, it's far too simple and easy to reduce those people. And it was only in 2010 that we got an apology from the British Prime Minister, who at the time was David Cameron, who finally admitted that Bloody Sunday was unjustified and unjustifiable, and that these were unarmed civilians. That is the context you need to know. You're going to just want to march with your neighbours, with your community, for better living conditions. And not only will your life be taken, it'll be taken twice, because your actual physical life will be taken, and then your name will be put all over the international media. You're just a thug, you're just a terrorist. And it continues to happen today. And that is, again, it's something that it's so important to hold space and say, yeah, I see that happening in other people, in other communities. And you see it happening even with as recently as Tyree Nichols. And when I think of Tyree Nichols, I always want to think of him as an incredibly talented landscape photographer. as a skateboarder, as a father, define these people by their lives and who they actually were, not what other people have done to them, and not the myth that it benefits those to perpetuate about
Right.
him.
Right.
And that's something that's really true of my community, and it's true of so many others. It hits home in so many different ways, and that is something that once you really let that hit you, everything you hear about the Troubles is different.
Right.
And that's, to me, really important to be an advocate for my community, to remind people of.
So with that, thank you for that, because I know that was a hard question. I wanted there to be some type of context for people who are not aware of the show, and especially, that leads me into, so here in your work with Christiane and the casting of Ferryman, what exactly are you doing? Or what exactly are you trying to make sure of or consulting on? What exactly is your goal there?
A great question. What I'm doing and what is my goal are two different things.
Okay. Okay, let's start with what you're doing.
What I'm doing is I want to be here as a sounding board. And what I'm doing is trying to make sure that when people have questions about the text or questions about the characters or questions about the world, that I'm 100% there to step in. And even if a question is difficult for me emotionally to access the answer to, I'm going to go there. I'm completely going to go there. If I'm not meeting you in openness and vulnerability and honesty, I'm doing a disservice to more than just myself. And so it's constantly going there and also just empowering people. My goal is that when I go from being complete strangers with this cast to having worked with them, they just feel good. They feel good. And listen, if I was an American actor from San Diego and I was doing this play in front of someone from Derry, I'd be like, don't even look at me, I don't want to do it. I'd be so tense and so nervous.
Right.
So it's also constantly reassuring people, like, I am only ever looking at the good in what you do. And if I give you any kind of note or thought, it is us working together as a collaborative team. I'm part of this team with you, I believe in you, I've got you, I'm going to support you. And if there's any kind of note that I have about cultural context, it's never any judgment or shame. Oh, you didn't know that. Like, there's so many things I don't know.
Yeah.
There's always going to be more things that I don't know than I do know. So it's just holding people with that softness and understanding and trying to be really empowering. And sometimes it's putting people into different notes with rhythm or pace or things like that. And that's where we get to my goal.
Okay.
So my goal relates back to what I was chatting about before, where I say, please define people by who they are. And I had said to the cast when I met them, I was like, listen, the Ferryman, for me, it reminds me of Russian theatre. It reminds me of some work you might read by Chekhov. If you want it to be really slow and miserable, go ahead. It can be the slowest, most miserable play in the world. Just resist that.
Right.
That is the worst thing. I don't want to see it.
Right. Right.
Always constantly reach for the joy. Reach for the joy. Find that. Remember that this is a well-known society for being funny. We're known for being quick-witted. We're known for making jokes a lot of the time. I also need you to understand that this comes with a greater sense of urgency when you're surrounded by trauma, that actually looking for the lightness becomes your way of gasping for air. You have to do that the whole time. Always look for that. Play the opposite with your lines. It sounds a bit negative, don't worry about it.
Right.
Make it the most entertaining story anyone's ever been told. Be really captivating. Focus on that. Now you're starting to get into the right energy, Or when I arrived, one thing that really stood out to me as, oh, that's a bit jarring, that's not it, was this beautiful scene in Act 2 where there is a Kaylee.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dance.
Yeah.
I seen the dance the first time and I thought, oh wow, this is strange. All of the choreography was beautiful. I was never going to change any of it. but everyone cared so much about getting the steps right. And I was like, what? Why do you care so much? The ceilidh is the adult equivalent of like spinning in a circle with a friend as a kid in the playground. It's
Just
that
free, right?
you're free, you're wild. Oh, what's the meaning of it? Just having the crack. Go for it. You're alive, you're in this moment, be playful. Don't worry about looking at someone else's feet to work out what to do with yours. That's realistic. And yeah, it's like a team sport and it's all about inclusion. You
Yeah.
have to be so inclusive with people and you're just raising the roof and it's almost like there's a bunch of fireworks going off inside you and you can't help but get them out and there's an excitement and that also comes out vocally. So if you're standing there and you're doing this beautiful dance but you're not interacting with each other, you're not joking with each other, you're not making like whoops and yelps, and you're just kind of showing me you can dance.
Right.
But that's not what it is. It's about making things really lively,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and be far less reverent. So being so respectful, you know,
Yeah.
and things like that. But I also totally understand a note like that is probably counterintuitive. As
Right.
actors, you want
Right.
to hold space and go, I have respect for this culture. No, I know you do. You don't need to prove it. I know that.
Right.
I know
Right.
that. You're coming from a great place. Just let it go,
Yeah.
you know, and giving people permission to let it go.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. What are the, if any, what are the differences in theater culture between like the States and where you're from? If there, you've been here, like just the culture as far as maybe, I don't know if we need to split it up between people actually come watch the show, acting, production staff. Is there different cultures of theater?
No, do you know what? I think they're closer than what people would imagine. Although I was having a really interesting chat with a man from Carlsbad the other day called Mike, and he told me on a trip to Dublin he went to see A Whistle in the Dark, and he said it was, oh my God, it was the darkest play he'd ever seen. He couldn't get over how dark it was, and then he read the review next day, and he thought at first it had to have been a joke, because it said in the review that the acting was great, the writing was great, but it really could have been a touch more melancholy. He was like, how? I was like, oh yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, that absolutely sounds right. And with that, I think, yeah, we do have a tendency to kind of lean into darkness, but approach it from light.
I got you.
You know, it's like, yeah, okay, this is dark. And I know it's dark, and you know it's dark, so I'm not going to play on that.
Right.
It's dark enough.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear a joke about it? You know,
Right.
we'll explore it, and things like that. I think that's the thing. But one thing that really stands out to me is the audience reaction. And I understand it's just, it is total engagement, but I find it very unusual for audiences here to talk. And they're not like talking, but just going, yep.
The response.
Oh, did you see that? Yeah, that's what I thought. You know? Whereas, yeah, and I was chatting to one of the actors about this, and I said, yeah, I was thinking, actually, after seeing that first run with an audience, I should probably say to some of you, if you ever want to, you know, perform where I'm from, just understand it's very respectful to be silent.
So not even that kind of call response reaction, not like.
Really, I mean, little things that you can't help have jumping out of you.
Yeah.
Where you go, or
Right.
something like that. But if you were talking during a show, listen,
Yeah.
I didn't pay to see you.
Right. Right.
Stop talking. Someone really busted their ass writing their script. And these actors are remarkable, and they've worked so hard, and that director has worked so hard, and I'm here to see them, and they're telling this story with incredible artistic flair. I don't need your commentary.
Right. Right.
Stop it, get out of my head. You're taking me out of this world. I'm
Right.
100% submerged. And yeah, it's just a thing because it's a thing that I notice because I understand that both of these approaches are coming from the same place, actually. It's a heart full of love and appreciation. And where I'm from, it's just going, you've got this.
Yeah.
And I'm holding that for you. Whereas here, it's just going, you've got this, and I want you to know that I know. You've got it, and I believe in you. So it's not any like judgment on either. It's just going, God, isn't that really unusual?
Yeah. That might be talking about it, and like that's been a thing of discussion right now. We don't know if that's maybe part of like this post-pandemic world we're in.
Okay.
Because it seems as though as theater, as we've gone through these phases of opening back up, from the hype, there's been a lot of talk lately, like our audience is more in this call and response, has some of theater etiquette gone by the wayside. Before Ferryman took the stage, we did 1222 Ultra Front, and we took it on a small tour, and we did the final week here at the stage reading on stage. And it was more than usual. It was more than usual, some of the response coming from the audience. And sometimes not even just to the play, just general noise. Like I remember one before, and they actually answered it.
Oh my God.
They actually answered it, and then it rang again.
Barred for life.
And they answered it again. And so, but I noticed that there have been incidences on Broadway, audience members. I think that the salesmen, like Wendell Pierce, they literally had to stop the show and bring the house lights up to address
That's insane.
an audience member, and then had to have them removed. But how seriously you have to raise the lights up, and the lead actor is literally having to engage with somebody in the audience. So,
I bet you're right.
I think there's a little bit, I think it's still a little bit to figure out, but it's been more of that than there was pre-pandemic.
Yes.
So this is something that I don't know if this is something that's just, this audiences are getting used to coming back to the theater and have lost some of that etiquette that they had. We don't know if it's new theater, if it's more people, new people coming in. I don't know what it is, but there has been a little bit of a rise. And that little bit of, because some people are like, no, well, we need to have that freedom to, yes, you do, but at the same time, I've been involved with theater, like I've been involved with music. That for people who do live performances. So like, for me, I'm not an actor per se, but I have so much respect for all the people who get on stage and act. And for me, even though I was doing 1222, I was just reading the narration. But I don't know if people understand how that can, you have someone on stage who's trying to be trying to be away from themselves, and is trying to pull out of themselves and be in this character and be in this place and this other dimension, so to say, for an audience. They're trying to keep themselves there, but that audience is actually trying to literally speak to you, like that can just throw off the whole.
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't know if people understand what actors go, like the hours and time it takes to get away from yourself and get into this character on a page, and this. There's a lot of talk about that. If that's something that's post-pandemic, is just a new paradigm in theater, audiences being a little more louder. But I think
you're right. Yeah, there was actually an article about that in a newspaper called The Stage just this week, and it was talking about this from the perspective of front of house staff, and how front of house staff in theatres are facing much more abuse from patrons, and reporting that some even feel scared of coming into work. And this is a post-pandemic trend also. And I wouldn't be surprised, because that also, to me, it echoes sentiments that some of my friends who work in hospitality have expressed also. Yeah. We've all lost our manners.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of that. And I think, the reason why I said I don't think you just don't only see it in theater, you see it in restaurants, you see it in the store. It's like people almost forgot how to interact with each other in public, or they've forgotten certain boundaries. And I'm just saying there's a way that we communicate with each other, right? There's a way we're nice to each other. There's a way that we are courteous to each other in different situations. And it seems like post-pandemic, a lot of that is just some of it is just gone. I hope it comes back, but it seems like a lot of it's gone. But I have noticed that there's been a lot of talk about that. And like you said, from front of house, really like, yeah, I don't know, like people are like, front of house staff are really more stressed out post-pandemic than they were before, because I think it is. People are just back out, they're back out in the streets, they're back out at theater, they're back going to the movies. Forgotten how to maybe talk to people in a way. Everyone's just been in such a rush to get everything instantly and just be there. And how to like, hey, out it down a couple of notches when you go out. Like, let's talk about your show that you're going to be doing next week. For everybody watching, I'm looking at two different cameras because I don't know which one I'm going to cut on here. But Bird About Town will be performed in the Conrad Praise Theater here at the Derry City New Village Arts Center. Today is the 9th, so this will be performed next Wednesday on the 15th at 7:30 p.m. Get your tickets if you haven't gotten them already before it's sold out. It's Bird About Town. It is a one-woman show starring Amanda. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and the history behind this?
Oh my God, this is a good story.
Yeah, okay, let's go.
Listen, I know I've said that before. But good story. And the reason why I'd be so delighted to share with you the story, not just of the show, but in terms of what happens on stage, but the story of how it was made, to me is really important to share. Because as I said before, I think that it's really important for artists, for actors particularly, who are often the final cog in a bigger machine, to remember your agency. You have agency. This industry lives and dies with you. You get to define it. And you don't necessarily need to wait for the right conditions. If you're waiting for the right circumstances, you've probably waited too long. And this was made in the most hilarious way. So, of all the team involved in making Bird About Town, I am the only person who's met everyone. So, this show started as a very short monologue for something called the No Touching Theatre Festival in Belfast. And this was like a monologue festival. Monologues and duologues, and the rules for the writers were that there could be no set, no props, and no touching.
Oh, wow.
And so actors came in, and either in their set of 1 or 2, they performed to an empty theatre, and it was live streamed over 3 days, and people could go online, buy their tickets, and get the code to the stream and watch. And so I submitted my resume to the team when they did a call out. I said, I'd love to be involved in this. Here's the kind of thing that is my strongest suit. Every actor has range and variation within them, but I think you also do know where you're at your shiniest.
Right.
And I was randomly paired up with a beautiful writer called Jessie Doyle from Dublin and an incredible director called Jess Williams. And we were just randomly selected together. Jessie, Jess and I, we had one Zoom, and then we were sent the script, and Jess and I worked together. And we sometimes rehearsed at a theatre, and we sometimes rehearsed in my living room. And we did this, and then we just stuck together. And for me, it was really obvious the second I read the script as a short monologue that this was powerful, and this was a show. It just needed to be lengthened. This was a full show, and that was so clear. And the heart and the love that went into that process of the three of us holding each other with compassion and love in these really testing times and doing this, it was so inspiring that I thought, I can easily work with these women. This is brilliant. And at this stage, I had performed several times at the Nordic Fringe Network. And so that is a network of fringe festivals across just all the Nordic countries. So that would be like Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Iceland.
Keep talking.
Of course.
Just keep talking.
And possibly more countries, and apologies if I've forgotten someone's country in their region. But I said to Jessie and Jess that I really loved this show. I wanted us to do this as a full production, and if they wanted, then I was going to put in an application to perform this at the Reykjavik Fringe Festival.
Right.
So I put in the application, and yeah, we were invited. And then once we got the invitation, that was our suggestion then to Jessie, please write the script. So she did. She wrote the script.
There we go. There we go.
So yeah, Jessie wrote the script with the support of a dramaturg called Crystal Sweetman.
Okay.
And yeah, it was brilliant. It was beautiful. And it was sent through to me and Jess. At this time, when we went to go into rehearsals, Jess was also working on a television show. And so we really had to accommodate her schedule. And I had to do my best to be off book by the time we could actually work together. There are some voiceovers in the show, and the voiceovers were recorded by my friend Maria, who's an outstanding actor, but also someone who, if I had her voice with me on stage, then I had the presence of someone who wills me good and believes in me at all times. And she was amazing, and she did that. And then we approached an artist called Fergus Wachala Kelly, and he did some line drawings and animation for us. But the majority of this show was built through an Instagram chat. We just kept messaging each other back and forth. We don't all live in the same place,
Right.
and we don't all have the same schedule, so we had to just keep going, keep checking in with each other. Oh, there's nowhere to rehearse, not a problem. I have a house. We can do that. And we can't meet up in person, that's okay. I'm going to send you a voice note if typing is too long for me today, if that's too tiring. And so that sounds crazy. Working with complete strangers and building a show over an Instagram chat.
But that's the world now. Technology lets us do that, though.
That's it. And also, it's really important for me to share that, because then I go, if I can do that, you can do that, and anyone else listening can do
Right.
that.
Right.
It's right there in front of you, and you need to trust that, yeah, it is crazy. Welcome to theatre.
Right. Right, exactly. Welcome to theater.
It's nuts. It's absolutely mad. But yeah, I love this, and it's also such an incredible privilege to have had a piece written for me to perform. This wasn't just written in general. Jessie was visualising me when she was writing this, going, I'll play with these words, I'll make the character like this. And I am excited about whenever this show gets even more momentum, and someday I'll be in the audience watching someone else do it.
Right, right.
But for right now, to be the guardian of this story is an absolute joy. It really is an absolute joy. It is definitely a play. It also sometimes feels like a really long poem. Because the writing is beautiful. The character is so real, but the language is just stunning. And I also, what I deeply appreciate about this is that it is new Irish work. This is Irish theatre. I don't wear tweed. I don't have a flat cap. I don't have a Guinness. My character doesn't have a horse. Because that's a romanticized image, and I'm sure some people find truth in themselves in that image. But this, for me, when I read it, I go, that's it. That's exactly what it is, and that's what it is living in this country. And it is really, really beautiful in that way to see that and to push against and resist stereotypes. And I'm so grateful. I'm so deeply grateful. It is tender, and it is, going back to what we said before, for some people it's a really sad show. We think it's a comedy. We think it's quite funny.
Yeah, right.
But I also understand for some people it's like, God, that character's really going through it. And it's like, yeah, she absolutely is.
Right.
She's struggling financially. She's come to the end of a relationship and can't cope. She's locked herself in the house and she's talking to birds.
Mm.
And with this, we also explore the impact of class on mental health. This person is struggling to survive, and that is exacerbating their mental unwell state. And it's really important to look at that in every part of the world. It's
Right.
really important to say, okay, this person's at their most vulnerable. And how is that aided and abetted through the structural system of this society? How are our most vulnerable even more isolated? Because that is not unique to where I'm from.
Right. Right.
Right? But yeah, so it goes into this space again of saying, okay, it is very vulnerable. Some of these issues are extremely important. A person who is a member of the LGBTQ community is potentially going to be even more isolated within the workplace, more open to discrimination. And how does this then put in another element? So this is a working class queer person in Ireland. What does that look like? What does that actually mean? Well, you can sit in the sadness if you want. You can reduce them to that if you want.
Mm-hmm.
You can say that their story is just really sad. Or you can say, okay, that is the outside circumstances. This is the person living in it. And I'm going to look at who they are and their brightness and their incredible moments of joy. And I'm going to play with all of that. And it's not disrespect. It's actually coming from a place of respect, saying, I see you. I see you for more than what outsiders want to define you as, with really broad strokes, you know? So, yeah, in that way it is a love story, or maybe an unloved story, but it is inherently political in that way.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
And it's funny because you'll be doing it on the Ferryman set.
Yeah, right? I can't wait. Yeah.
So again, everybody, if you're listening to this before the 15th, I say before the 15th because the show is on February 15th, which is next Wednesday. Just head on over to newvillagearts.org and click on the tickets and performances link, and you will be able to get your tickets to see Bird About Town for next. How you feeling? How you feeling about it right now? I know it's a few days away, but how you feeling?
Good. Yeah, I mean, I'm still at a place where I'm refamiliarizing myself with everything. And I think when you see it, yeah, after you see it, you will go, oh yeah, I know why she was kind of worried about some of this.
Yeah.
It is, it feels like I've run a marathon after I've performed this, and it is a lot of brain activity.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited.
Good.
I'm so
Good.
excited. Yeah, I can't wait, and I can't wait for the post-show talk.
That's right. Because the show's at 7:30, right? Show's at 7:30,
Yeah.
and then the post-show talk back at 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
So after the show's done, hang around and talk with Amanda. Do you know if anyone's going to talk with you yet? Is there anyone that's going to speak with you?
Well, we're gonna see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Be here.
Listen,
we'll
I
see
will
who's
just-
going to be talking back.
I'll dangle my legs over the edge of the stage. I'll just talk. But again, for me, one thing that's really important is an observation that I have made while being in San Diego, is that there are many ways in which some opportunities and certainly training feels inaccessible here. It feels really difficult. So it's really important to me that this talk isn't just going, when I did this, wasn't I very good? It's going, okay, thank you for lending me your time. I'm going to share with you some thoughts, ideas that I have. These are things that have worked for me. This is how I find people. This is how I push forward when I don't have people. This is how I manage having a life as an actor in that mainstream way. And this is how I support that through doing things like this. And I would like for people to leave this post-show talk going, I kind of have a clearer idea of how to make this for myself now.
Right.
I know how to build that network. I know what to do. And feeling reminded of their own right to take up space.
Yeah.
Everyone has the right to take up space and tell their stories. But I think it's just sometimes you need to give those around you a little bit of encouragement with that. And that's my main objective of wanting to do the post-show talk.
There you go. There you go. That's what they're meant for, right?
Right.
That's what they should be.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a time for us to learn. To have like serious dialogue with one another, because when it comes to art, there's so much to unpack, and there are so many different people have different interpretations
Yes.
of what they see. So it's really important for us to be able to not right or wrong, but to, because we're all looking through different lenses. Like we're all like here's the thing that I'm always thinking about, like the me that I talk to within myself, the me does not exist. No one can see my innermost thought. I can't see your innermost thoughts. What you have in you, the conversations you have with yourself, that dimension or that conversation you're having with yourself doesn't exist outside. How can anyone see everything that's within my brain? Or how can they feel exactly what we can't? The only way we can do is express to each other. Have to have that understanding. That person's trying to communicate something to me that there's no way I can see in totality. So I have to surrender some of my ego to understand. I can't see every place this person is coming from. They are living an experience. I'm living an experience. We have to share that to understand it. We can both sit here and look at the same tree and see it completely different.
Absolutely. That's what my mum used to say to me, actually. My mum used to always use the analogy of a totem pole. She'd say we'll be looking at the same totem pole and you see something that I don't see.
Yeah.
And it's a thing to always just keep remembering, that we'll always be looking at it differently. Keep it cool.
Yeah, for sure. So after Ferryman, after Bird About Town, it's like you're leaving next week. You're going back home on the 17th, I think.
Finally getting rid of me.
Yeah, get rid of you.
Get out.
What's next? What's next after that when you get back home?
When I get back home, I leave again. I'm going to Sweden. Yeah, I'm so grateful. So we performed Bird About Town at the Reykjavik Fringe Festival last year. We won Best Solo Show, and that was called the Act Alone Award. And with that, we have been invited to perform the show in August this year in the West Fjords, which is in Iceland. But as a result, we have been invited to perform it in Gothenburg by the Gothenburg Fringe Festival, and it is part of a showcase called Best of Fringe. So I'm so incredibly grateful to the team. I'm so grateful that they've chosen to use this funding and this space to share with us, to tell this story. And so I can't wait. So if you're in Sweden, no excuse.
You're in Sweden.
Yeah, I'll be doing that, and then I go home for 3 days, and then I leave again.
Oh, a whole 3 days.
Whole 3 days, and then I will be joining Arha Theatre in Prague, where I'm a company member in a show called 8 Compositions on the Lives of Ukrainians for a Western Audience by Anastasia Kosody. It's a really important piece. It is so urgent and so important, and it goes back to these recurring themes that we've been speaking about. Anastasia wrote this play in, I think, as early as May, which is really early.
Yeah.
A few months into the invasion of Ukraine, and she had this done. And again, the show leans into the actual real lives of these civilians. And yeah, it's a wonderful piece. It's a beautiful piece, and working as part of this company, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is. So we will be touring that show throughout the year. We'll be going to many different places.
So there's no rest for you. There's nothing. There's no.
I was really bad in a past
no
life.
downtime.
No.
Just the rest of 2023. There's no downtime.
No, but you know what? Listen, I love what I do.
Yeah.
I love what I do, and that's also why things like going to the beach it's a vital part of my practice. There's no stillness around me, so there has to be a huge amount of stillness inside of me. That's the only way to keep it manageable.
Yeah, I've been struggling with that.
Yeah, that's so human.
Some people quiet and silence are not the same thing. Just like easy and simple are not the same thing.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, like, you could be in a quiet place, but it's not silent. It's not, you know, or you know, you can have a task in front of you that's simple. It's not easy. The solution is simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know, the thing to do might not be easy to do that simple thing. It's the same.
Absolutely.
You can be in a room full of people and be the loneliest person on the planet. You know what I mean? So like all these are things that silence, quiet, like these are things that are there's an active thing in them when it comes to getting inside ourselves that we need to recognize the difference of. You know what I mean? Like you can be working hard as hell but not be at your best. You can just be working hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, he works hard. It's like one of my favorite lines for Christmas Vacation. But he worked so hard on it. Yeah, well, so do washing machines. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, are you just Are you just in a rinse cycle? Are you just working? You're just plugged in and working, or are you at your best? Are you contributing the gift in the best way that you have? And that comes from trying to find the stillness, the quiet, the silence, you know what I mean?
I also have a motto for myself, and it always keeps me in check, where I would remind myself that slow days make the fast days possible. So, yeah, I go home from San Diego, and then 2 weeks later I'm in Sweden. For those 2 weeks, I'll be in my pajamas.
There you go.
I'll be doing very little.
Right.
Very, very little. And it's about going, where is my mind? Where's my heart? Where's my body? What do all of these need right now? And resisting that myth also, which I would feel is rooted in capitalism, that you have to be busy. And being busy is being productive. And reframe that. Rest is being productive. Rest is actively contributing to your art.
Right. Yeah. So true. So true.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda, I would like to thank you for taking the time
Oh my God,
to talk
thank
to me
you.
today.
Thank you so much.
Do you have a public social media that you would like people to follow you at, or
Don't follow me. It's none of your business.
none of your
what I do.
business, folks? Leave her alone.
No, absolutely. My website is amandadoherty.com, and I spell Doherty Doherty. And then my Instagram, I'm best on Instagram. My Instagram is Amanda Dortz, Dortz, and I use Dortz because Dortz is a nickname in Derry for Doherty, and it's normally with an S. So I put a Z on it, and I thought it was really funny.
I'll make sure I have all those links in the description wherever you want, whether it's in the audio link, whether it's a video link, or on the website, wherever you go, wherever you are listening to this, I will make sure I have the links in the description. So make sure you give us a follow on Instagram at _whoiswe_, on Facebook at whoiswe, and you can follow me at Ahmed's Voice everywhere. Like, that's really simple. And don't forget to follow us at whoiswe.net. Amanda, thank you so much for hanging out with me for a little bit and talking to us about not only your work on the Ferryman, but again, Bird About Town. Don't forget that it's coming up February 15th right here inside at the Conrad Priebus Theater at the Dia Hurston New Village Arts Center, newvillagearts.org. Make sure you grab your tickets, and we will see you then. And we will say, let's wave goodbye to that camera, and then let's wave goodbye to that camera, because I don't know whichever one of these I'm going to end up. Maybe it'll be both of them. Who knows? But thank y'all, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.